And everybody is muted when they come in. However, you can unmute yourself, and feel free to unmute and ask a question. And I'll let you know if it's something we're going to cover anyway later on in the class. And if it's not, then I'll try to answer it then. Or you can also add questions into the chat if you don't want to unmute yourself. And let me get this slideshow up. Okay, can you guys see that? Hi, Rhonda. Okay. So I think that is all good to go. Does that look good? You guys can see that on your end? Okay. All right, perfect. So I'm trying to remember to say I'm really excited rather than nervous because I don't like to do the live videos, and I like to do the old in person or where I put everything in and it just shows up and I don't see my face or have to hear my voice afterwards. Am I the only one? I don't enjoy this. I love, love, love teaching. And this is by far this is my favorite class this month because I have a new class depending on what I'm teaching. But this class is based upon when we went to CARE, oh gosh, 6 years ago, I think, 5 years ago. And once I went through the chemistry of essential oils, there was no way for me to ever turn back from that. Like once you know, and you can't unknow it. So I hope that you guys walk away with just a more belief in what we have our hands on and a little bit more understanding. And hopefully it makes sense. I'm a mom. I've been a mom, and that's my skill set for forever. So I am not a chemistry teacher. I remember taking chemistry one class in college, and I actually went to Kansas State University to major in horticulture therapy, and that's what's on all of my information. However, I did really, really good at partying, and so I don't have a full degree in horticulture therapy. I have not a single plant in my entire house. And if you see our yard, I'm sure the neighbors that have amazing yards hate our yard because I just don't have that skill set. But I was always attracted to plants and horticulture, mainly because I read a Sweet Valley High book. And so that's how I chose my degree, was based upon that. So proof again that no 18-year-old should probably choose what they're going to go to college for the rest of their life. So anyway, do you guys have the book? If you have the Chemistry of Essential Oils Made Simple, and I laugh that that's the name of the book. There's like 7 million pages in here. It's way longer than any book I've ever read. But you can see all my tabs. This is an extremely useful book. I reference it all the time. And if you have your Bible, feel free to grab that. Take something to have notes on, and as many oils as you have around you. If you've got them easily accessible, great. Some of the ones that I definitely want you to have is grapefruit, dill, spearmint. If you have them, if you don't, it's okay. But if you have them, grab them real quick. Orange, lemon, some other citrus ones. Tea tree, valor, cedarwood. So if you have a stash, or maybe just move to wherever your stash is. Okay, so the book breakdown, it's a huge book. It's really not an expensive investment. You can get it, I'm sure there's many different places you can get it from. I think I ordered mine just from Amazon, but check Growing Healthy Homes and Life Science Publishers. They have an extensive outlines of all kinds of different tables. So let's say that you want to use cedarwood, but you don't have cedarwood. It's listed in the book. You can look up cedarwood in the back tables and find out what chemical makeup it is really strong in and pick one of the other oils from that section. There's been times I've went and looked and thought, okay, I need to use grapefruit for what I'm wanting to use, what I'm wanting to find some success with. And so there's been a lot of times that it's came in useful. It has both the common and the scientific plant names and their chemical makeups for everything. So you won't need that all the time by any means. But I just wanted, if you don't have it, here is a quick picture. This over here is lavender. And it's Lavandula hybrid. It tells us that it's a mint family. It tells us which alcohols are in it, which esters, monoterpenes, just all kinds of crazy long words that we don't use in our everyday language. But it will be impressive to somebody. So you can find similar oils by the chemical makeup. You can find similar oils listed in botanical families. It's kind of interesting to see all the different mint families, what's included in that, which part of the plant produces which oil. So it's a lot of green information for those of you who like that kind of stuff. I'm going to let you guys read through this letter. I'm going to go ahead and read it out loud for those of you who are not on the computer. This is a letter from Dr. David Stewart, who wrote the book. The purpose of the book is not to make you a chemist. It is to inspire you to see God's hand in the creation of molecules of essential oils. It is to help you appreciate, through a basic understanding of chemistry, that God ever made us and that he was thinking of our well-being and mine, your well-being and mine, when he crafted the molecules of essential oils. According to Psalms 19, the heavens are telling the glory of God, and the filaments proclaims his handiwork. The psalmist speaks of the power and nature of God as evidenced in the grandeur of the galaxies, the great dome of the sky, and the infinite scale of the cosmos. The scripture goes on to say that even though inanimate creation does not speak in words, it still has a voice resounding everywhere to be heard and understood by the spiritually attuned. While God's presence is visibly manifest in his grand and infinite forms, he can also be experienced in the infinitely small. Invisible though they are, the atoms are also telling the glory of God. The molecules proclaim his handiwork. God is both mightily and minutely active in his creation. I see God's hand written all over the chemistry of essential oils. This is the second page of it. This is a book on chemistry, but chemistry with a heart and soul. To you who have little background in chemistry yet desire a basic understanding of the science of essential oils, this book is written for you. To you who may fear chemistry and avoided it in high school, fear it no more. This book was written for you. And to you who may have degrees in chemistry or even advanced degrees, this book is for you too, because of the unique composition and character of essential oils is not found in just college textbooks, nor is it part of the curriculum of most universities. And you will discover the properties of essential oils that bring healing and maintain health cannot be explained solely by materialistic science as we know it. The power of the oils is more than chemistry. So if you couldn't guess, there is a lot of scripture involved with this class. Just going to warn you up front on that. I'm sorry, I'm trying to watch the chat. Sorry, Michelle. The oils, you will want to have grapefruit, dill, spearmint, valor, cedarwood, peppermint, lemon, anything, just anything you have that is in that range, grab it. So for right now, I want you to go ahead and take your valor and put a drop in your hand, if you have it, and rub it around and just puff that in for a second. Valor, if you are not familiar with valor, is a great oil blend to help with courage. So, hey babe, this is my husband. Want to grab a chair? Hold it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're in the middle of supper right now.
Okay. The next one I want you to grab is either peppermint or lemon, or if you've got another one, keep you alert. Peppermint is also good for retention. So if you're diffusing it when your kids are studying for a test, you can have them put it on again right before the test, and the retention rate is higher. And recall. All right, and then the last one that we're going to do is cedarwood. Put a drop in your left hand. Take your thumb of your right hand and put it in the cedarwood. Our right thumb correlates back to our brain and learning. So I want you to take your right thumb with the cedarwood on it and put it in the top roof of your mouth and just hold it there for 10 seconds. And it does taste gross, sorry. Cedarwood is really high in the oils that can help you overcome and learn. So that is why we did that. Yeah, it's kind of nasty. But that's all right. We're big girls, so we can handle it, right? Now this class, I'm going to try not to talk super fast, but this was a 3-day class time that we went to care. And the chemistry part alone was a total of 6 hours of teaching and learning. So I'm gonna condense that as much as I can tonight. And I just really, really encourage you to get the book, ask questions, and dig in if you have not been to care. If you have been to care, awesome. I would love to have you guys continue to share at the end, what you took away from care. If you have not been to care, one of the best benefits of care is getting certified. You don't have to be certified, though, to teach and learn. And if you're on my team, we have some fun stuff coming up. We've got a retreat coming up the first weekend of April to teach all the classes that you would normally learn at care. So. Also, cedarwood, anytime you have a mental block, you can use cedarwood on your right thumb, roof of your mouth. And that will help when you're acquiring any new information, studying for something that you feel is too hard, learning something, that will help with that. Okay, the first gulp from the glass of natural science will make you an atheist, but at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. This was the quote from the father of quantum physics. Quantum physics sounds really, really tough. And it is extremely complicated to understand. And so we are just going to barely touch on some of the things that relate specifically to essential oils. And I don't think I always feel like everybody knows who I am. And I just saw that my name popped up as Rhonda Favano. I'm not Rhonda Favano. My name is Suzanne Griffin. I'm a silver. We've been with Young Living for 7 years. We've got 6 kids, and I have a first grandbaby that's almost 3 months old already. We live in Southeast Kansas. My husband does construction. We have some rental properties, and we used to homeschool, and now we don't. And that's kind of cool and fun on most days. But they enjoy school. That's really all that about me. Okay, so the classic physics deals with particles of atomic size and larger. Quantum physics deals with the subatomic particles like the electrons, protons, and neutrons. And chemistry, there are definitive and definite laws and predictable outcomes independent of the experimenter and observer. So you can test something and it's true to whatever you tested. With quantum physics, there are probabilities and unpredictable outcomes dependent upon the thought of the experimenter or observer. Science has shown that human thought influences the electron behavior. True science and true religion should never be in conflict. They both seek the same end, the definition of, and the alliance with truth. Religion makes science relevant. And all of this is in the book. I will tell you if I'm interjecting an opinion. This is an opinion. This was just a really cool slide that I came across, and I wanted to share this with you. So in the beginning, we started with 1 proton hydrogen, and God created and said, let there be light, which is our resonance and the frequency. And we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight too. And there's time and space, and then we have free will. This is where the uncertainty principle comes from. So with quantum physics, we have the mind, body, and oil connection. So when someone asks, what will this oil do for me? Then we have 2 different answers, or 2 answers that we can give that same person. Based upon the classical chemistry, based upon what the EODR has said, based upon what other people have used it for, the chemical makeup, what this plant can do, what this oil can do, I would recommend. I would use, or it says you can use this. Also, you can ask, what do you want the oil to do? The quantum physics, essential oils, and the mind-body connection, it's a small booklet. If you want to just read about that through the raindrop training online, you can do so. But all bodily processes involve electron behavior. It is at the level of electrons that the body and mind connect and the psychosomatic effects begin. It is also where the human mind connects and the influences the behavior of the essential oils. If you guys were on Rhonda's talk the other night with vision casting, she shared a lot of information about how and Madison Goodyear is amazing on sharing on attraction and abundance and the frequencies. So if you guys need more information on that, it is out there. Proverbs 23:7 says, "For as he thinks in his heart, so is he." This relates back to the quantum physics. So why do we need to know chemistry? You don't have to know the chemistry of the essential oils to make them work. They're still going to work. However, you can use them more effectively. You could teach others more in depth. And when encountering professionals or skeptics, it just gives you a little bit more to share with about facts. And most importantly of all of this is for your own belief. Because when you understand more of the chemistry side of this, there is no way that you're going to question what we're doing, why we're using them, or why you want to be sharing this with other people. Everybody has the left brain, right brain, and it all interconnects. Most of us are dominant, usually on one side or the other. Your left brain and right brain, to develop one and neglect the other is not good for either. We want balance in all things, and balance is the key. Intellectual study with a devotional attitude and recognition of God as the source of all knowledge will increase your intuitive gifts without limit. Applying and inhaling essential oils during your learning and creative activities help to optimize the gifts that God has given us. So if we're using oils when we're doing logical things, and we use oils during creative things, then it helps to balance out that other side that we're not using currently. I just thought this was a beautiful picture and a great way to remember which side is which. So left is our logical, right is our creative, the beauty, the coloring, all of that. When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth. For he will not speak on his own, but he will speak whatever he hears. He will also declare to you what is to come. 4 ways to take oils. So there is the lungs, skin, digestive tract, and orifices. This is the picture of the kidneys because I couldn't find a little picture of a butt. But that's what we're talking about is suppositories. You can take it through vaginally, through inhalation through the nose, like through the squirts. You can also even put it directly underneath your tongue without swallowing it. So lungs, of course, is diffusing, huffing, skin, anywhere, digestive tract, internally through water or making up your own capsules. How quickly do oils work? When inhaling the oils, the molecules reach the brain within 22 seconds. When applying them, at the end of 2 minutes, it can be found in the bloodstream. And at the close of 20 minutes, every cell in the entire body can be infected. So if you put on an oil and you're not feeling any different, got a headache, it's been 15, 20 minutes, put it on again until you feel a difference. There are 3 schools of aromatherapy. There is the German, English, British, and French. The reason there's a lot of conflicting information out there is due to the base teaching of wherever somebody got their training from. So German, a lot of their training is inhalation only, diffusing, and that's it. The British English school of thought, they massage with carrier oils, and they only use between 2 to 5% essential oils in all of that carrier oil. So they are using it highly diluted, but they do believe in massage. The French, they treat essential oils like a medicine. They not only do testing for whatever they have, and you can go to the doctors to get them. You can also get injections directly into the bloodstream. So Young Living takes something from each of these areas and uses everything it possibly can. We don't necessarily dilute the oils as highly as the English, but you can definitely use it in massage. Young Living, due to Gary Young's thousands of hours of training and research, utilizes all of these different ways. All right, so finding pure medicinal quality essential oils. There are oils that heal and oils that do not. And this is where I apologize, I'm going to get a little bit on a soapbox tonight. So there, if you look through the slide, it's got therapeutic grade, grade A, pure and unadulterated. This is where Young Living is. Then you have natural and food grade oils. Then you have perfume grade, and then floral waters at the very bottom. And it is perfectly fine if somebody wants to produce food grade oils, flavor, perfume, or even, like the hydrosol that Young Living had with the sandalwood hydrosol. That would be basically like the floral waters. That, say what it is the biggest issue that people who actually are producing pure unadulterated essential oils would love to see from everybody else who is claiming essential oils but not making essential oils. Plants should be coming from the exact right genus, species, and the right cut. No chemical fertilizers or pesticides, not on the plants, not on the soil. Use steam distillation. And then there is a company or a testing service, AFNAR, which is in France, that has hundreds and hundreds of different tests on essential oils. And they compare those. There was only one company at the time of the printing of this book that actually sent any of their oils to be tested from the very beginning over there for that. Young Living themselves does so many different tests. A couple of years ago when we were at convention, Mike Butte was sharing all the different testing strategies that Young Living does and how they do it. And I could feel myself completely zoning out, like after the third or fourth test explanation. I was like, that's great. I'm super glad they do that. I don't comprehend anything they're doing, but that's great. So this is where the largest misunderstanding of oils comes from. There are warnings to people to avoid ingestion. Some of the oils, if you go to Walmart and you look in their pharmaceutical area, they have essential oils there. They also have them back by the candles, and they actually say essential oils on them. But on the bottle, it will say, do not apply topically, do not ingest. So then we have people who are disappointed in the results that they got from the oils, or they've actually even been harmed by oils that they bought that claim to be 100% pure, and they're not. And there's a huge difference between therapeutic grade and non-therapeutic grade oils. And there's just this huge blanket statement out there because it got really popular. So all these people were jumping on the bandwagon to be included in the essential oil revolution or sales without, and using the words of Young Living without using the skills and the research and the practices of Young Living. So I don't know if I can share this. I think I can. When we were at CARE, one of the leaders that was there, she was really close to Gary Young at one point in her life before he passed away. And she had the opportunity to actually see testing from other companies and had pictures of those tests. And it was scary, sad, and irritating to see that some of the actual tests from other places did not hold true to what they say they were. Okay, so beaver butt, right? Have you heard of this? What am I eating? Natural raspberry flavor. Castoreum, it's what it's commonly listed as. In yogurt, flavoring, anytime you see raspberry, and sometimes vanilla flavoring. The secretions that are around the anus of the beaver has a natural vanilla flavoring that can also, depending on what they fed the beaver, can also transfer over to raspberry flavor. Ice cream. I just want to know who the first person was that discovered this and why they discovered it. There's also a lot of fraud. This was 2 pieces that I pulled out. This was some peppermint, Walmart peppermint, and once they did the testing, they found that even though it says it was 100% pure peppermint, that it was actually corn mint. And that was figured out based upon all the different constituents that did not show up to be consistent with what peppermint oil would show up as. The second one is cassia oil. It was listed as cinnamon bark. They taste very similar, they smell very similar, but cinnamon bark is a lot more expensive. It has completely different benefits than cassia oil. Cassia oil is very inexpensive to produce. So 95% of essential oils are produced. I'm going to go back one slide for this area and fragrance. And they do not fulfill therapeutic standards. Out of the hundreds of constituents in all the different oils, the fragrance industry only cares about the fragrance. The flavor industry only cares about the flavor. So that is why they also add in a lot of artificial and synthetics, is because if it's not getting to the scent that they want it to be or the flavor they want it to be, then they obviously are going to have to add some synthetics to make it correct. A lot of artificial. It takes about 28 hours to make cypress oil with healing properties. And it has to be produced at a certain temperature, picked at a certain time. I can make you cypress oil in my kitchen and get oil in like an hour. But because of the different constituents that come out of the plant at different times, will depend and make that oil therapeutic or not. So if you're using essential oils because you want the medicinal properties, then that's where Young Living comes in. If you just want your house to smell good and you're not really concerned about what you're putting into your body, then save the natural producing plants and oils and just, you can buy Glade. It doesn't really matter if you're just wanting something that smells good. But if you want something that smells good, is non-toxic, and is going to have the side effect of healing, that's when you want to use the natural essential oils. Most companies have absolutely no intent to produce therapeutic oils. They are concerned with bottom line business. And many multiple distillations, what that means is I'm wanting to get more coffee from my coffee grounds, so I put the coffee grounds and let it run hot water over them 3 or 4 different times. They cultivate plants with chemicals. If you have a whole field of lavender and you are spraying it down with chemicals to help them grow more so you can produce more, so you can get more oil from it, and you're taking a whole field of lavender and putting it into a small bottle of lavender oil, how much of that is actually filled with chemicals? And if it's attached to a lipid and it's going through your body in 2 minutes, 20 minutes, going straight to your brain if you're smelling it, you want to be 100% sure that there's not chemicals on those plants. Crude oil, if it's processed out enough, can be used for natural orange and lemon flavoring. If something mimics a natural flavor, they can legally label it as a natural flavor. So your natural raspberry flavor is Beaver Flavor. If you have not watched the movie Stink on Netflix, please do so. It talks about how fragrances are considered intellectual property. So if they list every ingredient on something, on a product, and then they list fragrance, there could honestly be anywhere from 1 to 1,000 different chemicals that make up that fragrance, but they do not have to disclose what that is that makes up that fragrance, because that's considered intellectual property. Okay, so here is the Arabian Sea. Here's Yemen, Oman. And this is the places along here that we get our frankincense. So if you see a bottle labeled as frankincense for anywhere from $10 to $20 an ounce, you can be sure that it's been diluted, because you cannot gather the resins from Arabian and Somalian deserts by hand on rocky, rough terrain, transport them to France to be distilled, then import them to North America for that price and maintain your quality and purity. For every pound of frankincense that's distilled in the world, there's more than 12 pounds sold. So, and that is very, very common. There was so much more tea tree oil sold than even tea tree plants planted. Fraud is just unfortunately part of the business because it can be. FDA does not care what is in the bottles. They only care about what is labeled on the bottles. In England, for example, wintergreen oil is virtually non-existent. Laboratories produce methyl salicylate and they bottle it as oil of wintergreen. Methyl salicylate is aspirin. That is the reason it's highly toxic in large doses. And so that is why the FDA doesn't recognize the difference between artificial and natural. And that is why we have childproof caps on several of the different oils. So, deaths during a 2-year period. There was over 200,000 deaths due to FDA-approved prescription drugs and 0 due to unapproved essential oils. Some companies test on animals versus humans, and we all know that animals have a different breakdown system than humans do. Also, a lot of the controversy that you will see sometimes is they'll say, do not use this oil, it's completely unsafe for humans, it's especially unsafe for kids and babies. A lot of times they're looking at a single component versus a whole oil. So that would be like if I was making a cake, but I put out all of the ingredients without mixing them together and told everybody just to take a spoonful of each ingredient, it's delicious. Nobody's going to want a raw egg. That is when we bake it together that makes it delicious. So when we look at a whole oil overall, there are constituents in some of the oils that stand alone would not be safe. It wouldn't be something that you want to put on. But once it's combined with another chemical component, then it is. So chemistry made easy. Not really, but we'll say that for this. Okay, so grab your grapefruit. And while you guys are getting your grapefruit, also grab, if you have some other citrus oils, grab, lime, orange, tangerine, lemon, any of those. And go ahead and take the lids off and don't look, kind of mix them up. Don't look at what you're going to smell. Another area of warning, well, something to think about. So there's over 500 plant species. Less than 4% of them have the means to actually even produce essential oils. Most of those plants produce around 3% of the plant. Some plants, like Heliocristum, Melissa, Jasmine, Rose, only produce out of the entire plant about 0.1%. So that is why it is those oils are very costly because there's very little essential oil in them. But however, the benefits of those essential oils, they have such great beneficial properties that we have still continued to plant and farm and try to take care of them in a healthy way that they can be sustainable. Okay, so you got a couple of your citrus oils, right? So go ahead and smell them. And without looking at the labels, see if you can figure out which one is the grapefruit as you're smelling them. Can you tell? So the majority, the majority portion of any of the essential oils is composed of the chosen elements, which is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and nitrogen. The first three are the biggest players. Sulfur and nitrogen are common, but not near as common as the others. So that's how you can remember, is that they are the chosen elements. So the distinctive scent in grapefruit comes from sulfur. And it is in a very tiny trace amount. It's less than 1 part per billion. So that's equivalent to if you had an Olympic-sized swimming pool dropping 5 drops of grapefruit oil in it, and you could still smell it. You can still smell the sulfur, that hint of it, over everything else. So grapefruit oil is actually around 90% D-limonene, which is a faint orange aroma. However, you can still smell that sulfur, where you cannot smell that same odor when you smell orange or lemon. So the reason I'm pointing that out is because that trace amount, that little bitty tiny trace amount, is where some of the beneficial properties of the grapefruit comes from. Unlike the other citrus oils, grapefruit is a topical anesthetic. So if you put a drop of the grapefruit on your tongue, it will go numb. Have you ever noticed that when you're drinking it, it feels weird? That is from that trace constituent. Also, that trace constituent, they did a study and they found that overall, when women wore grapefruit, they were guessed to be 6 years younger than what they really were. So it is just something in the scent. So add that to your makeup list. All right, so this was kind of a cool slide. Let's see if I can basic chemistry concepts. Chemistry is the study of matter and how one kind reacts with another. Matter is anything that has mass and occupies space. So we are matter. All matter is composed of 3 kinds of particles: the electron, proton, and neutron. And the study of electrical exchanges between the atoms involving their shells of electrons. And none of that makes sense hardly at all in my mind, but that's okay. So I saw this slide and I thought it was pretty amazing. The Holy Trinity of the atom. So I'll let you look through that. This was also very fascinating to me. Dr. Stewart called it God's plan for creation in a table. So this is a periodic table of elements. There's 92 naturally occurring elements. There's the hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen are, again, the most popular ones that show up in different life forms. They are simple building blocks by divine genius. So if you're looking at those 92 different elements and you think about how many different arrangements there are and how many different inventions and things that are made from just those couple of things, it's pretty amazing. So they're arranged left to right and vertically. So if they're in the same vertical column, then they relate back and to each other. And going from one side to the other, you have metals all the way over to non-metals, and you have different gases and such. I cannot tell you very much at all about it. Each one has a number on it, and that is the atomic mass unit. That's the weight of each. So if you look at H2O, the H up here in the top left corner has a 1. And then you see O over here has an 8. So if you're looking at H2O, H is 1, 2 O's would be 8 plus 8, 16. I don't think I wrote that down right. Anyway, there's H2O. And that gives you the weight when you add everything up. Anyway, I think I wrote that down wrong. Okay, so the reason the weight matters, sorry, I'll go back to this. The reason the weight matters is because depending on how big a molecule becomes is within the distillation process of what it can be distilled. Also, when it's passing through our skin or our blood-brain barrier, it depends on how big the molecule is and the size of the molecule and the weight of the molecule. Okay, so Romans 1:20, for since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. So there's a lot of things that God has made that will make it more visible and without question. Okay, so let's go back to the atomic weight in essential oils. We talked about the molecular weight. Viscosity, if you see that word, that just means how thick the oil is. So if you have frankincense and myrrh, the viscosity is higher with myrrh. Myrrh is really thick, or vetiver. Vetiver is a very high viscosity. You see people say that, they can't even hardly get it out of the bottle. You can put it in your bra and warm it up a little bit, but it's a booger to get out. The volatility, I can never say this word, is how volatile that oil is. And so it is a higher scent. When you're diffusing it, you'll smell these oils quicker and better. You will smell the ones that are thicker longer, because it takes them longer to disperse and to leave. And that's where you hear the biological half-life. So if you have a thick oil and a thin oil in front of you, or grab your frankincense or another really thin oil, and then grab a thick oil, vetiver, sandalwood, myrrh, and take the caps off and hold them down low. Do one at a time. Start with the thick one, and then slowly raise it up to your nose and see how close you have to get to your nose before you can smell that oil. And then take your thin one, the one that is that's liquidy. It's more, it's not as thick. And do the same thing. Raise it up towards your nose and see how close it needs to be before you can smell that one. So if they're higher in thickness and viscosity, usually sesquiterpene oils are really thick. Monoterpene oils are the thinner, looser. The validity is the ability to evaporate. So your monoterpene oils are more volatile and they're more fragrant. So think about that when you're putting oils in your diffuser. If you want them to be a really great, powerful smell, then use something that's more volatile. So you can tell as you're trying to smell things, you can smell some of your oils the second you take the cap off, because those molecules are dancing around a lot faster, so they're escaping the bottle faster. That's another reason you want to keep your lids on your oils, because those molecules will escape and they'll evaporate faster. Biological half-life. Have you guys heard of this before? It's beneficial for diffusing, or if you're making a perfume or blending. It's also beneficial to know when you're sick. So the biological half-life is the amount of time it takes for half of the essential oil to remain aromatically active or therapeutically active in the body. The larger the molecular weight, the longer that it's going to stay active, and the longer it takes to be eliminated from the body. So if you're sick or under the wellness line, use a thicker oil. If you're reading through the EODR and it recommends, like I'm looking here, it recommends eucalyptus for sinus issues, rosemary, pine, breathing in, RC, elemi, fig, ginger, I'm peppermint, sage lavender, there's myrtle, melaleuca. So I'm going to try to think, okay, which of those do I know are a little bit thicker, and what could I add to it to make it stay longer? So that's when you can either, if it's a really volatile oil and thin, you could add a thicker oil to it, like myrrh. You could add a carrier oil to it. And those are also your notes. Like when you're blending, the more volatile it is, the lighter fragrance and it is, and higher notes, then you may want to blend or put in the diffuser some that are more volatile, medium, and the deeper base. The power of being small. Okay, so let me just read this. Protein molecules are too heavy, weighing sometimes thousands, if not millions of AMUs, so they're too heavy to pass through the distillation process. In order to get the larger molecules from a plant in a dried herb form, you would need to use it like a pill or a tea or a tincture. Almost all allergens are found in proteins and polypeptides, both of which have really large molecules because they're composed of amino acids, none of which are found in essential oils. So herein lies the argument of, can you be allergic to essential oils? Yes and no. For the most part, no. If it is a cold pressed essential oil, like from the citrus rind, somebody may be allergic to the rind of a citrus. Another thing that people very rarely can be allergic to certain phenols, which show up in like eucalyptus, and some of the menthols are different oils. But the majority of the time, 99% of the time, when people think they're allergic to an essential oil, it's either a detox situation, or it is based upon their skin, or it's an emotional issue that oil is dealing with in that individual. Okay, so all oils that are less than 500 AMU, which almost I believe every single oil is below 500, essential oils below 500, most of them are below 300. If something is smaller than 500 AMUs, it can pass the blood-brain barrier as well as get into our bloodstream. So that's the beauty of the oils. So can somebody be allergic to the oils? Possibly, but it is very, very far and few between. Ligand carries information between the cells. Interleukin enables the immune system to identify harmless substances. So if the immune system is lowered, the secretion of the interleukin, which is what is between the cells, are low. The immune system will mistake non-harmful substances for harmful ones, resulting in allergy-like reactions. So in order for somebody to be actually allergic to something, they've had to have been introduced to that before. Somebody could be allergic to a cedar wood, but not allergic to the cedarwood oil, because the majority of the time when somebody's allergic to a plant, it's because of the proteins in that plant. So the interleukin secretions will rise and fall depending on one's emotional state. A chronically negative emotional state, such as fear, anxiety, or unresolved grief or depression, causes your interleukin production to drop off, and it compromises our immune function. Proverbs 17:22 says, a merry heart does good like medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. So if you are sick and you've been struggling with depression, very negative attitude, use the oil of joy, because by being more joyful, more content, more happy, more gratitude, we are going to be healthier. So phenols are, we mentioned that. We're going to talk more about what those are in just a second. Let's talk also about the blood-brain barrier. It's a wall of high-density cells that restricts the passages of substances from the bloodstream into the brain. The blood-brain barrier protects our brain from foreign bodies, and since essential oils are lipid-soluble and have very light molecular weight, they can pass through that and bring benefits. So essential oils like frankincense, cedarwood are really high in sesquiterpenes, which can carry more oxygen to the brain. They offer great support for brain health. I'm going to brag a little bit. So I know this is a rare situation. Our fifth kiddo is on the spectrum, and he has been in all kinds of special ed support. And so we had our follow-up IEP today, and they are removing him from all special ed services, period. I mean, he has dropped off of speech 2 years ago. He's dropped off of just he was in so many different assistants, and nothing. Like, we walked away from the school today just kind of in shock, almost nervous, and just excited because he's not in that category anymore. And I know that's not going to be everybody's story, but we have done a lot of work, and we've had a lot of help and support over the years through teachers and the special ed program and the therapists that worked with him. But we've also been using oils and prayer and doing balances and everything that we could for him at home. So I don't know. I'm excited. All right, so the chemistry of essential oils consists of simple hydrocarbons, oxygenated hydrocarbons, and their isomers. And that probably means absolutely nothing to the majority of you, but we're going to go through a couple of them. And all right, so organic chemistry, again, it's completely different. The study of carbons, we are not talking about certified organic, completely different situation. So our bodies are self-healing creations. We can take so many molecules in food and drinks and medicines, and our bodies have the ability to make sense of it. A car, however, cannot. We have to put in gas in the gas tank, oil in the oil, water in the radiator. Otherwise, if we just put whatever we wanted, it would be a disaster and it would break down. And so the whole time that we are alive, we are regenerating. However, once we die, then that is when our bodies start breaking down, and it goes back to all of the elements originally of what they were as they are in our body. And that's what cars do. That's what houses do. Everything, when it erodes, it goes back to the original elements. Genesis 3:19 says, "For dust you are, and to dust you will return." Hydrocarbons. and are part of the alkane family. So oil and water don't mix. We know that. There is, the big players are methane, ethane, propane, and butane. Butane is a lighter fluid. Gasoline falls in the hexane category. And there's just all kinds of different stuff, all the way up to tars and asphalts. So octane is a main compound of gasoline. Gasoline has an atomic weight of 114. So what do you think is happening when you see people put gasoline on their hands to clean up after they've had paint, or those fumes that you're smelling at the gas station? I'm one of those weird people that I used to really think gasoline smelled great, but now I try to avoid it because I know that that has the capability to go straight to my brain when I'm smelling it. Rose's affair. So rose oil, if you guys have rose oil and have ever seen it get not hard, but it gels up when it gets cold, or if you've touched a rose and rubbed it in your hands, it almost feels like you can feel that waxy makeup of the rose petal. That is what the alkane is. Rose has the highest amount of alkane constituents in the rose oil. So these are the radical sisters. They are not nice. So the methane, when it becomes methyl and ethyl and propyl and butyl, then they're not good players. They're not nice. So they are now considered free radicals. Free radicals are incomplete molecules, and they're looking to attach themselves to compete for balance. They've got little grabby hands, and they pickpocket off of other electrons and atoms, and they take from your tissues. They can do damage and accelerate the aging process. They can damage your organs, and it can cause cellular mutations, such as cancer sometimes. One of the healing properties of essential oils is that they can remove free radicals from our body. So you want to make sure to have antioxidants in your diet at all times. We can find antioxidants in the form of essential oils. If you have an x-ray, it jumbles up your body immensely. So always, always, always come home and make sure to take care of your body with some antioxidants. Another access that we have is the Ninja juice. 1 ounce of Ninja Red is equivalent to 814 blueberries. And you can see all the other information. 100 oranges, 73 medium strawberries. All of these are antioxidant foods, but just 1 ounce of Ninja Red is incredible. And if you go and search on YouTube for Ninja Red blood experiment, you can watch a short little 2-minute video, and it shows you exactly how the blood forms after Ninja Red. And it's pretty incredible to see the change. I should mention this too. Blueberries, they have an antioxidant amount of 2,400. Wolfberries are labeled at 25,000. The lime essential oils and the wolfberry at 25,000, I think they label it as a OAC. So that is the highest, right after blueberries, that you can get in antioxidants in natural food form. The lime oil has 26,000, and clove oil has over 1 million. All right, so the family of alcoholics. So we talked about carbon, we talked about hydrogen, and then when you add oxygen to the alkanes, now they become this family of alcoholics. And you can have methanol, which is really highly toxic. comes from wood chips. Also, our bodies naturally produce methanol when we have aspartame, so which is a sweetener that's been approved to be safe. Ethanol, and I was being sarcastic. Ethanol is from grains. It's usually, hops and things like that, things that you can find in beer and alcoholic beverages. Propanol, very carcinogenic, flammable, and that is one of the ones that is most often used to cut essential oils. 90 to 95% of when they're cutting, when they've cut essential oils, 90% of the time they've used propanol. There's butanol, which is a paint remover. It is also found in the ginger essential oil. However, once it combined with the other properties within the ginger, it's not toxic. Okay, so isomers. This is the other thing that makes up essential oils. So compounds made in laboratories have the same chemical formulations as natural ones, but usually not being able to mimic the exact same isomer. So an isomer is just a grouping. They are molecules with the same parts, but different arrangements. If I gave every single person 3 blue Legos, 5 yellow, and 8 red, and I told you guys to make something, every single one of you would make something different. It would not look exactly the same. Guess how many completely different arrangements you can make with just those couple of Legos? There are over 20 trillion options that you could come up with. So it's no wonder that in a lab, it's virtually impossible to make at the exact same form and arrangement. It may have the same amount of carbon in it, same amount of hydrogen, but it won't look exactly the same. So if it doesn't arrange exactly the same, it's not going to produce exactly the same result. So then God said, let us make human beings in our own image and likeness. So we're all just kind of isomers because we're all made up of the same things, but we're all different. The Lord of the Rings, there was a gentleman that as he was studying, he couldn't quite figure out the makeup of what he was looking into with the molecules, and then he finally realized that it's because they were rings. They're not just particle after particle, but they were forming these rings. And a lot of times they're called the aromatic rings. They're really truly called the benzene ring, but it's referred to as the aromatic ring because of the prevalence in fragrances. You'll see rings in fragrances that you won't see in other constituents and compounds that don't have the smells to them. So the rings cease to have the properties of particles only, but also take on the properties of this wave of energy. And this is how the oils also get frequency. So our bodies, everything in our bodies comes in with 0 to on up frequencies. If we are looking at the human brain, it has anywhere from a frequency of 72 to 90 megahertz. So if we look over here at the oils, and those that are between the 72 to 90 megahertz, which would be peppermint, angelica, sandalwood is just over, those are oils that are instantly going to give an oomph to the brain. When we start looking down this list and we see the onset of death at 25 megahertz, flu symptoms, etc., then those are when we need to raise our megahertz. All of the oils have different frequency rates. And emotions have different frequency rates. So this is how we and oils respond to words, thoughts, and prayer, whether we are aware of it or not. When they did studies on the frequency of the oil after it was prayed for, the frequency was higher. So these are different, and you can see the negative have lower frequencies than the higher, more positive ones. And that's called resonance or frequency. Every body organ has a different frequency. You can look on the internet. YouTube has some great salt experiment and water experiments. It's kind of like with violin strings or tuning forks. If I have two sets of tuning forks and I hit one on one side of the room and say I hit a C, the fork on the other side will resonate and start making that sound because of that sound frequency is going over and touching the exact same resonance, same frequency. Okay, so is it coincidence that essential oils work so well? How is it that the therapeutic grade essential oils resonate with all of the right frequencies to address our mental, spiritual, and emotional and physical needs? Genesis 1, in the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth, it was formless, void, and dark, and it covered the face of the deep. There was chaos, incoherence, and dissonance. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. And so God spoke his creation into being, and he vibrated it through and imbued everything he created with that frequency. So what is light? Light is basically just a spectrum of different frequencies. So God said many times as a prelude to everything that he created, he spoke it into being. On the third day, he imbued his plants with his word, which therefore has the oils in those plants. His very vibrations, his intelligent word, he created them. And he has created medicines whose molecules sing the same songs that our organs are singing to resonate and find each other. They are healing to every cell within our body. And God said, and it was so. Biochemistry, the chemistry of organisms and life processes. So we have over 100 trillion cells in our body, and they're all working together. The example was, if you had 100 trillion kids, how easy would it be to get them to all line up and do what they're told to do? Well, in our body, they are all talking to each other and working together to do what they're supposed to do. Okay, so this is when I want you to go ahead and grab your dill and your spearmint. All right, so I'm going to see if I can turn this back on. Okay, so we have on the dill and the spearmint, these are called chiral molecules, and they are made up of the exact same compounds, but they mirror each other. They're not exactly the same. They're mirror images. So the majority of the time, when in laboratories, when they are trying to make this, and they can get it right, what happens is it somehow ends up flipping. So they've got these mirror images, but not exactly the same. Well, that's a big deal. So your spearmint, smell your spearmint. And smell your dill. Completely different, right? But they are made up of the exact same molecules, the exact same amounts, but they are not arranged exactly the same. And our nose can pick that up. We have receptors all over our body to be able to tell the difference, whether not just if they are mirror images, but sometimes the molecules may have, instead of standing up like this, they may not be angled. They may be angled this way. They might be angled that way. And that makes a difference. It can make a difference between peppermint and tea tree, fennel and basil, oregano and thyme. Our bodies are so sensitive to the different makeups that we can tell the scent difference. And not only does it smell different, but because the way they are arranged, that is how our bodies can use them. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that, I mean, it's just mind-blowing to me that dill has certain properties and spearmint has different properties, exactly the same chemical makeup of them. Okay. So isomers, terpenes, isoprenes, terpenes, and PMS. Isoprenes are, if you took a brick to start building a building, terpenes are a whole bunch of those bricks put together. And that, depending on the makeup of the isoprene, you know, how the isoprene is made and how many terpenes you put all together, it creates something. Okay, so phenols, monoterpene, and sesquiterpenes. Phenols clean the receptor sites. Monoterpenes restore and awaken the correct information in the cell's memory, the DNA, and sesquiterpenes delete the bad info from the cellular memory. PMS oils are like the triple whammy of oils when you're applying them. PMS oils can work together to bring about permanent healing, sometimes instantaneously, because together they can remove the root source of some problems at a cellular level. Phenols. It's a group of oils. Phenols is one of the chemicals and set of oils. So oregano, thyme, there's just a bunch that fall into this area. So what phenols do is they go in and they clean the receptor sites on the cells. There are thousands of different receptor sites in our body. It'd be like if you got on a ship and they gave you a card when you first got on the ship to unlock your door to your cabin, but they didn't tell you what your cabin number was. You would just be going down the hallway, putting your key in, putting your key in, putting your key in, and seeing if you could find your cabin of 5,000 different doors. So different receptor sites have different sizes. So you can see that if you have a triangle-shaped receptor site and something to go in there, it needs to be a triangle. Something else that's a round shape is not going to fit properly. So the oils have certain molecular makeups, and they have them. Our body has a certain receptor site to fit that exact same makeup and size. And they're both sending out the same frequencies, they're both sending out the same size, and that's how they can find each other quickly. Sorry. So the benefit to the phenols is if we have been on a lot of medications and different things like that, our receptor sites can get clogged up and all gunked up. So if it has, the phenols go in and they clean all that up so that the oils that are coming on next can do their work faster. It's a good thing. So phenols are high in antiseptics, antibacterial. They just help detoxify the body. And the PMS oils is what you find in the raindrop. We put on Valor, and then oregano, thyme, basil. You can see that those are really high in phenols. And then wintergreen, marjoram, cypress, peppermint on down. So they're all going to be cleaning in the phenols. And then you put on the next round that are going to have the monoterpenes. And then the next round, they're going to have some sesquiterpenes. There are a couple oils that can kind of stand alone. Marjoram, tea tree, and hyssop are all great oils. If you cannot do a raindrop or get a raindrop and you need to put that on you alone, don't have somebody, you could use one of those oils. But the raindrop is phenomenal. Hyssop. Hyssop was used in biblical times to cleanse bad habits and sinful tendencies by addressing the issues at the level of cellular memory. I heard a story where Gary Young was talking to one of his workers who was smoking, and he said, "You need to be using hyssop." And the guy did not even know why, and he came back later and said, "Well, I quit smoking." And Gary Young told him that's why he told him to use hyssop. Snake oil. Tea tree. A lot of you were familiar with Melaleuca alternifolia, Melaleuca A, tea tree oil, alternifolia. So there's over 200 different species of Melaleuca. And in Australia, it was known as snake oil because it was excellent if you got a snake bite to pull that out. Then people started catching on, it was popular, and then they had the traveling salesman come through, and snake oil got a bad name because it no longer worked. So this is not the first time we've went through this whole thing. But so there is also multiple different Melaleucas. There's two of them that Young Living has. Well, there might be more. I don't know what's currently available. But this other one, Melaleuca Q, is all I'm going to say, is hormonal balancing. It is excellent to add to your allergy blend because the Florida Everglades, they have this tree down there that they get this Melaleuca from. And the pollen is a powerful allergen. So this oil from that same tree is an anti-allergenic. So if you're struggling with allergies, you could add that in with your lemon, lavender, peppermint. So that is why it is important to know the chemotypes. A chemotype, plants are particularly indistinguishable from one another in appearance, but are nevertheless unique in their composition and therefore are used to treat distinct diseases. Okay, so with some plants, where they are grown results in different chemical properties and benefits in the oils. You could have one packet of seeds and plant it in different locations, like on the seashore, up on a hillside, a mountaintop. You could plant it in a very wet climate or very acid soil, very dry. You could put it in some alkaline soil. You could have it in sunny, cloudy, all these different places. And when they survive, it will produce different oils for each location and have different benefits from every location. And not only that, but many plants are so sensitive to the time of harvest, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, before or after blooming, or even during blooming, whether it's in spring, summer, or fall, that it could come up with different chemotypes because of that. And all of those factors are what make growing and harvesting the plants of essential oils and the production a very, very complex art and science. And why you do not want to be buying oils that I make in my kitchen. It's not going to be the same. And that is why Young Living has spent millions of dollars and hours of research. Gary Young didn't just do this overnight. He has been researching for years and spent so much money. They have all kinds of information there on their farms of when they pick the oil and when they pick the plant and what part of the plant that oil comes from. Some plants produce 3 different types of oils. some from their fruit, some from their stems, from their leaves, and they all have different properties. Thyme has 9 different chemotypes. Rosemary has 3. Basil has 4. Eucalyptus has over 600 different species. We talked about melaleuca. So when they're looking at testing, this is why it is so incredible to me. It'd be like in our little bitty town, if I was trying to catch someone, or if the police were trying to catch someone off of fingerprints, and they only had our 5,000 town residents to pick from, and we didn't utilize the FBI, who has millions of fingerprints. That is the same thing. When Young Living is the one who has developed and done so much testing to find the right constituents that fall within the right parameters to know that it's going to have healing properties. And then another company, let's say like Bed Bath & Beyond or Walmart, has essential oils. They are not essential oils. It is a fragrance oil or it is a flavor oil, but it is not essential oils in the sense that it's therapeutic grade. So drug companies, they usually take generic or natural substances and alter them slightly to create patentable drugs. I actually worked at a drug company in Kansas City when I lived there, and everything had to be so exact. There is absolutely no way that they could use something natural because it has to be exactly the same every single time. Peppermint. So this is a recent peppermint, and this isn't my peppermint from my very first kit 7 years ago, and they smell completely different. This peppermint smells sweeter. Every single harvest is going to be a little bit different, but as long as those parameters of those chemical makeup stays within those parameters, then we'll still be bottled. A couple years ago, Young Living denied an entire field of peppermint because it didn't fall within the parameters. And it cost millions of dollars to deny that. Another company did buy it and they sold it, but it didn't have the properties, the healing properties in it. And at classes, I fill up a bottle of peppermint, an old bottle of peppermint with water, and I put 1 drop of peppermint in it. I pass it around. And people have the hardest time figuring out which one is the true peppermint or which one is the water peppermint. They cannot even tell a difference. And that's why we cannot just trust our nose when we go to smell things, because you can make an artificial peppermint, you can make an artificial lavender, but it comes down to the actual constituents in it. And the species. Lavender at Walmart was actually found to be lavandulin species, which is higher in menthol. So if I have a child that got burned and I want to help them out, I'm going to put lavender. I'm going to use our species of lavender that is known to help with burns. If I would have used the lavandin oil, lavandula is the species that's good. Lavandin, which is what was in the bottle at Walmart, has the higher menthol. It would have caused the burn to get worse. And so you have to trust and know where you're buying from, not just trust that it's $10 cheaper for a bottle. There's a reason. So coumarin is an actual natural existence. It's vitamin K. It's a natural blood coagulant. So drug companies made Coumadin, which is the synthetic, which did its flip, and it's a blood thinner. We already talked about wintergreen. Okay, the old age rediscovered. So Ecclesiastes 1, 9 through 10. All things continue the way that they have been since the beginning. What has happened will happen again. There is nothing new here on earth. Someone might say, look, this is all new. But really, it has always been here. It was here before we were. If someone is questioning you whether this is new age, it is not. The newly discovered truths of today regarding the spiritual and emotional roots of diseases, as well as their treatment and prevention, means through herbs and oils, were once common knowledge in the ancient times before Moses and Abraham. And the vast herbal knowledge of Native Americans has, for the most part, been lost. Gary Young studied with the Native Americans. He has studied over in France. He went to the Amazon, and did research on plants and brought back Dorado Azul. He asked the shaman for information because those are the people that understood the plants and studied them and used what was God-given. Wisdom is inherent in nature because God imbued it there by the vibrations of his very voice. So when I am struggling with something, I use my EODR, my essential oil dust reference, to find the physical properties or the physical things that I can do with the oils and supplements. I look up in my Heal Your Body, and I find the emotional root to it, and I use those oils. And then the third book I use is A More Excellent Way, which I can look up my emotional struggle and find the spiritual root that I need to work on. And almost every single time, if I do all three of those, I can overcome a lot of struggles. Here's a picture of Gary. He's known as an explorer, innovator, pioneer, legacy, researcher, writer, and philanthropist. And I was not a fan of him at all because I had a background with a different MLM company, and I just had a bitter taste in my mouth for whoever the leader was. And I had a view of him and a perspective of him based upon my past experience. But every single time that I got to hear him speak before he passed away, and there's a blog of his information of different things that he's researched. And when you listen to him and you hear his heart, you just can't help to just kind of fall in love with him, almost like a father figure. He's just very caring, and not just about people, but plants. And he's so humble. And he just loved the plants. And I'm very thankful physically for what he has done for our company. I'm also thankful that he set it up in a way that can be financially beneficial. And for those of us who love helping people, it's amazing consequence. I don't know, side of things to have that happen. So this is the last part of the book. What this all means is that so long as there are living plants, the knowledge of their healing powers, including their oils, can never be lost. Even if it is lost and forgotten from antiquity, hidden in the vaults of time, the information is always still there in the plants themselves. They are ready to share what they know with anyone willing to befriend them and learn and speak and comprehend their native tongue. Their silent language is one of the spirit and can only be heard through the spirits. But plants won't teach just anyone. They have to have an entrance requirement and prerequisites before you can be accepted into their special universal flowers, fields, and spores. Their entrance exam is patience. Their prerequisite is love. Their code of conduct is respect for nature. Their tuition is a commitment to serve and share with others. The true and complete chemistry of essential oils cannot be learned from a book like this. It can only be learned from God speaking directly to you through his loving creations, the oils and the plants themselves. So I know I've shared a lot of scripture and maybe some things that challenged you tonight. When I was attending K-State, and some of the few classes I did attend, one of them was plant science. And in our lab, we had to work one semester, and this was my very first introduction to the woo-woo side of anything. We had plants, and we had taken these pictures of their aura to show, how much warmth they had around them. And then we had to come back in the room and stomp over to them with a pair of scissors, and they showed the aura, and it was incredible. Like, they're living things, and they could actually feel, and they took off of my vibration, whether I was talking hatefully to them or whether I was talking lovingly to them, whether I approached them with scissors and I cut off one of their leaves, or whether I came up and stroked them and loved on them. My plants that I loved on grew, and they flourished, and they were just beautiful. And the other ones died. And when you do, Madison Goodyear did an experiment with water, frozen water, and it's beautiful. The crystals that developed when we talk lovingly and the crystals that developed when we were negative and rude were very sharp and harsh. Our words have power, and they have resonance to other things that are accepting from us. George Washington Carver said that he spoke to the peanut plants, and they told him how to make the butter and the beans. They impressed upon him to make plastic with their shells. There was another man, Luther Burbank, who was a very prayerful man and a horticulture genius. He talked the thorns off of cactus with words of love and kindness, and it actually resulted in a spineless variety that had a completely different altered DNA. Speak to the earth, and it will teach you. Job 12:8. So that is the conclusion of everything I'm going to share tonight. I would just highly recommend the book. I would recommend attending some of the care classes if possible. I would recommend being 100% confident in choosing your oils that you want to use. A lot of times I will just walk by my oil cabinet. Let me see if I can turn off my screen share. There we go. So a lot of times I will just walk by my oil cabinet, and I just have this feeling that I need a certain oil. And I can just kind of stand in front of it. And today, multiple different times, I thought, I really want some grapefruit. And I was really attracted and came in and got a roller oil that Rhonda had given me. I just could not get enough of it. And I remember this afternoon, she mentioned that there was grapefruit oil in that. So, okay, do you guys have any questions at all? I probably cannot answer some of them. Yes, Rochelle, about Gary, I was going to mention that and I forgot. If you look up anybody on the internet, there's going to be some crazy stuff out there on everybody. But Gary does have some negative things out there, and I have just chosen to kind of buffet style, take what I want and leave the rest. I don't know that I agree with everything he's probably ever did, and that's okay. But his heart was in the right place.
I chopped it up to everybody has a past. We've all done mistakes. And from what I've read, it was more of a learning. That whatever he did, he fully thought he was doing good. But for just knowing him after starting Young Living and everything is, like you just said, his heart was in it. He was trying to do good. And again, everybody has a past, so you can't hate on everybody because I tell my husband all the time, he wouldn't have wanted me 10 years ago. He wouldn't have fallen in love with me. So blessed that he didn't find me then.
That's an excellent point. Lemon, lavender, and peppermint, and also tea tree for the allergies. I put copaiba and bees in it too, but lemon, lavender, and peppermint by the. Anybody else have any questions or something they want to share? I hope I made sense of it some tonight. I never ever want to waste anyone's time, and I hope you guys walk away with just a deeper understanding of what Young Living has to offer you guys as far as the purity, and what you have in turn to offer someone else. And I went way over on time. I'm so sorry. All right. So have a great night. And if you guys end up having questions, you can always message Rhonda. Rhonda is the expert on all things. All right. Thank you guys for your patience.
Thanks,
Bye.
lady. Good job.
Night.
Night.